Okay, so now that we're actually colouring and changing the different elements and sections on our web page, what I want to do is, where before we actually had our container a light grey colour, I'm going to make that a ghost white. Just delete that, because now we want to actually have no distinction between the container background and the body background, because what we want to do, we want to give the illusion of these elements of floating. So if we go back here, we can now see that there's element of floating, and then that will give us a nice feel to the page. Once we've finished, it's all going to look like it's floating away. And the other thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start adding box shadows. So they're all going to be the same. They're going to be 10px, 10px, 5px, and then I'm going to have a colour of 888888, and let me copy that one. I'm going to put it in not the logo, but we've got it in the header, sorry. I'm going to put in the main body, or not main body, but welcome div. I'm going to put it in the newsletter. I'm going to actually have it on the left, and I'm going to have it on the right as well. And then in our main body, we're going to leave it as it is. Let's go back to our page, and what you can see now is we can actually see these shadows appearing. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to go back. You can just about make out the shadow there. I'm going to go back to here, and I'm actually just going to comment out this part of this code. You can see I can comment with this /star /. There we go. So now what we can see is we've got these floating elements. Now again, as I say, we've got a lovely bit of a floating element there, lovely floating element there, and then the left and the right divs are floating elements. We're going to actually change the colors of these, and we're going to change the arrangements of these. But you can see now the web page actually starting to take shape, even with just the small amounts of work that we've done. We've got some nice elements floating, we've got some different elements on the page, and you can see very little work. It does actually start making a big difference. So let's continue on to the next lecture, where we're going to style some of the more other elements. So before we start adding content and styling the other sections, let's just take a look at the footer and start styling that. So again, because it's a HTML5 element, we just go footer. We don't need to actually put a period or a hash. And let's set the height, so say 50 pixels. I want the background color to be completely different to the rest, so I'm going to actually set that to be black, so it really stands out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the color to white, and what that's going to do is set the font color to white, so it's going to give it a background but with a white font. So again, if we now look at this page and we come back, and there we can see that the text is white, the background is black, and it's looking quite good. Let me just do the text align, and let me put that on the right so we can see what that looks like. Look at the page, and that's a good position for that. We can actually do a bit of padding on the right side just to get that across. So let's go padding on the right to be say 20 pixels. So we pulled it across a little bit, and we can do the same at the top, can't we? We can actually go padding on the top to be, say, 15 pixels, just to see what that looks like. Come down quite nice, and then we may also just want to see what adding a bit of box shadow looks like as well, just to see if that makes any good effect or not. Really, it's a good way of trial and error. We just play around and see what it all looks like. So there we go. We actually have a bit of box shadow, which actually doesn't look too bad actually. But the point is that by playing around, a lot of the styling is about you actually seeing what it looks like, seeing if it looks good for how you want it, and you know, getting that ideal style for you. So there we go. We've styled the footer. We've actually got that standout different colour. We've got some shadows around there, and it's, as I say, it's getting there. It's actually getting to a point which I'm actually liking so far. So now that we've done the footer, in the next lectures we're going to just restyle these left and right divs to add a place where we could put content onto the web page. Okay, so we're kind of nearing completion of our first website. But what I want to do next is just do something with this left div and right div. So we know that one's called left div, one's called right div. So if we go to our style sheets, we already have a left div and a right div in there. So what we want to do is we want to start changing the background colour. For a start, make the same as all the other ones, so the background colour to be hash that. There we go. And then again hash that, to make it consistent with everything else. But what I want to do is I want to actually start changing the size, doing the float left, etc. So let's start with the left div. Now we've got our background colour. So the next thing I want to do is I like to set the float left on this one. And next, let's make the width. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it 40%. So you can be very specific in pixels and EM with the size, but by using percent, it kind of looks at the size and it takes the 40% of the current size. So I like using percents when I do this kind of thing, because it can vary depending on your viewport. Let's make a bit of padding, and we'll have padding at 10 pixels, and that's going to be all round rather than on a specific size. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add a border to this, and I'm going to make this 2 pixels and a solid. So what we're saying is we're going to have the border of size 2 pixels thickness, and it's going to be a solid border. And I'm also going to have a margin of 20 pixels. And there's our left div. Now let's save that. Go back to our web page, and now we can see we have this left div here. Okay, so let's go back to our code, and for the right div I'm actually going to more or less have exactly the same. So let me just copy and paste that in there because it saves a bit of time. But I'm going to set this one to float right. Okay, just to force it to go onto the right hand side of the page. So there we have our float left and float right. We can make these a little bit bigger when we start putting content in there, but it's just a matter of seeing what it looks like, and you know, having it all kind of set nice and all that kind of stuff. Now I could actually remove the borders. I may do that in a moment. I just put the border on there to see what it looked like. But let me go back to the code and let me go back to index. And what I'm going to want to do actually after this is I'm going to want to do my other div clear. Just to remove all the float and positioning. Save that again. Come back to our page, and there we go. It's put the menu, but the footer right at the bottom again, which is what we wanted. Now, at the moment, it doesn't really fit with the everything else having that border. So we've seen what it looks like. We don't necessarily like it, so I don't think it fits with our current one. So easy enough. Let's just remove the border from there. We either have a border on one thing or we have a border on everything. And what we can do is, I think we want to maybe reduce this to 30 pixels at the bottom, just to pull that in a bit closer. There we go. And what we probably want to do is make the height of these boxes more specific, just to make it look a little bit better. So let's just add a height on there, and let's make that 200 pixels, and let's do that with the other one as well. Let's copy and paste it. Just makes it look a little bit more sized, you know, so as if we've got more content on there. And there we go. It's actually, you know, looking quite good. It's we can see we've got different elements in there. You can imagine that we'd have some images or text in here, and what we'll do going forward, we'll add a little bit of content to these boxes just to make it look a little bit more. But the only other thing I want to do very quickly while I'm here, I want to add a little bit more size on the bottom of our header here, because the shadow's falling off there. We want to actually maybe fix that before we go any further. So let's go back to our header and let's add a bit of padding at the bottom, just at the bottom of, say, 30 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. Just increase a little bit, because then it actually makes it look like those buttons are actually part of the header. So there you go. We've now added the last positioning of the elements on our web page. All we would do from here is just add some content to the left and right. Adds a little bit more content to maybe this hello, welcome part here. Add a bit of code to handle the entering of the information in these boxes, and obviously update the pages. There are one or two other things I want to show you very quickly to enhance what we can have with our menu, but that'll be in the next lecture.